Thank you very much, Dr. Saito. And everyone, hello, my name is Christmas de Guzman, and I'm actually a former student of Dr. Saito. So I studied in UNU IAS, Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability. And I'm very, very happy to be here, and I'd like to talk about my research. The title of my research is Community ES Valuation, or Community Ecosystem Service Valuation and Mapping of Landscape Values, the case of Malampaya Protected Landscape and Seascape. So Malampaya Protected Landscape and Seascape is located in Palawan, the Philippines. So I'm a Filipino, but right now I'm based in Japan. And actually I just graduated last year, but now I'm working fully in Asia Pacific Network for Global Change Research, and our office do support capacity building and also regional research. So going back to my research interest, so since the focus of our conference right now is on resilience, this is just some background on resilience, and we know that one system or a protected area determines its resilience by way of how the people manages its resources. So in the Philippines, there are a lot of protected areas that has been established, but there are issues when it comes to management and planning of protected area, and also how multi-stakeholder mechanisms can work. So it doesn't mean that a protected area that improves livelihoods, does it mean that it also improves environmental stability or biodiversity? So that's like a question in my country. And also there's three different issues like conflict on resource use and increasing population, really exponential growth, and insufficient social support from the government. So I came to think of this study as since there's the failure to harmonize protected area planning and management with the needs or involvement of community, by methods of community ecosystem service valuation or ES valuation, and by method of participatory mapping of ecosystem service values, whether these findings could be placed as input for the protected area planning. So that's kind of the significance of my study. And just to give you an idea of my study site, so this is of course the Philippines, and the arm of the Philippines, which is called Palawan. This is my area called Malampaya, and in Malampaya, it's rich in fishery resources and also rich in terrestrial resources, and also a number of wildlife species are found in the area. But however, due to poverty and of course lack of social support from the government, you see that the population has this exponential growth, and we don't know whether the people are aware of how they could sustainably utilize the resources in this protected area. So supposed to be this is should be following the concept of socio-ecological system, or kind of a protected area wherein people are living in harmony with the environment or with nature. So again, just some issues and just some history. This is an open access area in 2000, and there's this conflict between resource use, as I've said, because when the policy was put in place, the people thought that it's threatening their livelihood and their subsistence. So that's the zoning that was established by the government. And you see here that it's composed of 5 zones. And just notice in the map that the red zones are those which are considered core zones or really protected area. Those may be habitats of endangered species, or really like very much important areas for biodiversity sustenance or support for biodiversity. So here I'm not going to be talking more, but just to say that there are 5 protected zones, both in marine and in terrestrial areas. And these are the allowable activities on those zones. So my study is just to incorporate three concepts, which is social perception, or how people perceive the ecosystem services or the resources in their area, and the protection category, or where those resources could perceived by the people are in which category or zoning are they located in. And third part is what is the local condition, or what is the status of resilience in the area. So I'd like to incorporate these three components. So then I thought that with the information that I could gather, it could facilitate protected area management planning, and it could feed information to the local policymakers. So I think I've mentioned about the objectives, but to focus, I'm not gonna be talking everything because there's a lot of information. I'll be focusing on one, which is what is the status of resilience in the area, by the use of the toolkit for the indicators of resilience. And second one is examining the most important ecosystem services in Malampaya, or my protected area. So just a preview of the activities I've conducted. Phase one is, of course, I found out the local condition by way of participatory mapping and assessing the resilience, using the toolkit for indicators of resilience in socio-ecological production landscapes. And this is a publication that's been produced by UNU-IAS and Biodiversity International. So it's available freely, downloadable, and it's a general toolkit that could be customized in every, I think, local rural area. And as we have heard from our keynote speaker a while ago, Ms. Caroline, it's very important that we know the needs of the local community before we really develop the research questions. So that's what I actually explored and done. And I could say that I have been successful in getting the needs of the community. So first, after I've made that workshop, and I did also some kind of research-administered questionnaire, and this has been administered to 114 respondents, which are randomly selected. But these 114 respondents were only chosen from 2 community sites. So if we go back to my map, just very quickly. Oh, sorry. Anyway, just to, maybe I could describe. So the area is a sound. So the outer sound, I consider 2 communities, but I consider to focus more on the inner sound, because I found out in my resilience assessment that the communities in the inner sound are more vulnerable and less resilient than the communities in the outer sound. So I administered the 114 questionnaires to people in Barangay New Ginlo and Barangay Pangkol. That's the name of 2 communities. So 63 respondents in Barangay New Ginlo and 54 respondents in Barangay Pangkol. And in here, I found out that from the 114 respondents, I found out that through the use of 14 landscape typology. So this is like a kind of method that I use to the respondents, because before you ask them how they would want to perceive one resource, you have to do some kind of education. Because of course they know that they can get some, for example, non-timber from forest, they could get fish from the sea, but they don't know what's the value. So this is the typology, 14 types of values. And it is from access, aesthetic, biodiversity, economic, future, historical, symbolic, intrinsic, learning, life-sustaining, recreation, subsistence, therapeutic, and wilderness. So this typology I did not create myself, but this is a modified typology of a publication published by Hashimoto et al. And this is how I did my participatory mapping. So I trained 7 local enumerators, and from the 7 local enumerators, 4 of them are local officials. So those local officials were trained on how ecosystem services assessment works and how this kind of exercise can be replicated in the area. And the other 3 local enumerators are interns or trainees or university students. So the objective is really to create a base map wherein they can point out where the resources are located and whether the resources are in conflict with the zoning that has been established. So this one I would not really dig deeper, but this is just a result of what I've mentioned earlier, which is the workshop on assessing resilience, socio-ecological resilience. And as I've said in my study site, I focus on just New Ginlo and Pangkol. So that's the inner sound, or IS. And these are the 114 respondents' profile information. And these are the ecosystem services that the respondents themselves identified. And I've used the category of the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment Framework, which are the 4 types of ecosystem services. But you see here that they merely, or not merely, they're mostly identified more provisioning services. And based on the survey also, they have identified that these provisioning services are more of for economic purpose for them, rather than, for example, I even educated them that these provisioning services doesn't have to be economic. They could be, for example, just subsistence or for home use, or they could be, for example, like in a sharing society. So I guess because of the local condition, their priority is to really to get money and put food on the table. And these are just the examples of the services. So I think you can read on the screen. Okay, so just maybe my last slide is this. Sorry. Based on my research, here I could say that there is a great potential for the area to be developed, and for this kind of co-pilot mechanism between the local communities and the researchers as well as the policymakers in the area to work together to kind of have this reconciliation of zoning and people's needs. So you see here that they really are focusing on economic, and they don't actually have the knowledge of other benefits or ecosystem services. So I think this is a very important research because it's kind of a first research that has been conducted in the area and using a participatory method on kind of awareness raising on the importance of ecosystem services. And one interesting finding that I have gathered is that they're willing to pay to improve the ecosystem services in the area, and that's in the amount of 95 pesos per capita, or amount of 10,680 USD annually. So that's in that area, or considering 2 local communities. So I think, in conclusion, I could say that there's a lot that I could still work on this paper, but I'd like to examine the following, which is type of resources as indicated by the respondents and the respondents' attributes. So I'd like to work more on this and really clearly find what would be the interesting definite findings, and then average distance of the respondents to resource, because that could also give information on whether they are really sharing or they're just, wanted to procure resources by themselves independently. And also average evaluated values of resources, and also distances from respondents to resources, and the evaluated values of resources. So this is just my end note, and thank you very much.
Thank you, please. We don't have my standards.
Thank you for your presentation. It's wonderful. I am from Kenshin, coming from Vietnam National University. So I have a question. You also mentioned the four ecosystem services. So which one is the most useful for the community?
Fishery resource, and that's provisioning service.
Yeah. And according to your research, so another services not so important?
I'm not saying they're not important, but I think cultural is also an important ecosystem service. But because of they don't recognize it, they just feel that when they heard the word ecosystem service, they feel that it's a benefit. It should be something I consume. So when they say cultural, they will just say, oh, that's a place we feel attached to. So they don't actually consider it as important ecosystem service. But some of them, a few of them, actually 22 have listed from the 114 respondents.
Okay, thank you very much. Due to time constraint, I would like to move on to the next presentation. Thank you, Chris.